Peace be upon you, welcome to the channel. Today you and I are going to be reacting to Muslim Instagram.
Give me one important point about Islam that you want the non-Muslims to know.
I think the most important thing about Islam that non-Muslims should know is that Islam is not a religion, it's life itself. If you understand that Islam is a way of life, not a way of life, sorry, maybe we have to be careful, is the way of life, is the solution to all your problems, is the answer to all those existential questions that you have. Everyone has it. Don't give me that you don't have it. When you lay down in bed at 11 o'clock at night or 2 a.m., you have insomnia and you're thinking about all these issues, Islam will solve that. Every problem in this world, from racism to corruption to promiscuity, everything Islam can solve.
I've been living on my own since the age of 18. Islam is the only thing that I've had to guide me in my choices. And Islam has saved me from things like drug addiction, debt because of interest, and having illegitimate children, which are things that are promoted in the West at the moment.
The language of a person. You know, they say, for example, you can't see into people's hearts. There's two things that tell you the state of a person's heart. The first and the most important is the tongue. Knowing the state of a person's tongue, hearing the state of their language, is like a window into their heart, right? It's like it's completely transparent. If this person is eloquent, if this person is fasih, is baligh, is a person who's clean in their language, that's a state of their internal state. And as a result, and you know, even from a health perspective, the external is only about what the internal is, right? And so the Quran is, through fixing the internals, it also just makes the internals beautiful.
You have to take control of your own soul and your own desires rather than them controlling you. And the tongue is exactly the same. But if you're able to start controlling your tongue and restrain the things that you say, then this can help you and strengthen you in controlling your desires as well.
There's a video of a fan that runs onto the pitch and prostrates to Ronaldo. And I love football and Ronaldo as a player, but imagine doing that to a player who in a few years will be in the grave rotting away with worms eating his face. Look at the likes of Pele and Maradona, practically worshipped when they were alive, and now they are rotten corpses. This is why any type of love for the creation will end, but the love for our Creator will always remain, as your relationship with Him will last forever.
Is the purpose of this life for everything to be fair in this life? Or is the purpose that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward the people who do good in the hereafter with the good they did and punish the wrongdoers with the wrong that they did? A lot of people who are not Muslim, the real reason they say life is not fair is because they don't believe in the akhirah. And if they believed in the akhirah, they would never say that life is unfair. Because for them, the only concept of fairness they have is, I'm a good person today, why do I not get my prayer answered today? So a Muslim who goes to Jahannam, if they died as a Muslim and Allah accepted their Islam, they will not stay in the hellfire forever. They will go to Jannah after their punishment. So some people, Allah will forgive them automatically. And in some people, they are forgiven because they have so many other good deeds, Allah forgives their sin. Or Allah forgives their sin because of the calamity happened to them, they got sick, they had a problem in their life, so Allah forgives them. Some people, Allah forgives them from His mercy alone. And other people, Allah punishes them, but if He punishes a Muslim, he will not remain in the hellfire forever.
Alhamdulillah. Brothers, you might be able to get away with wasting time when you're young, but as you get a bit older, it's not going to be so cute, you know? If you become an incompetent adult that can't do anything, you haven't built up your skills and you haven't really achieved much, it's not going to be cute. So don't waste your youth. All these shows and all these like distractions that you have, seeing this person and that person and watching these TV shows on Netflix, they are what's stopping you from becoming something special. Remember that it's a war on your mind, and it's done so subtly yet deliberately to keep you dumb and occupied so that you become a slave to this dunya. And the shaitan will come to you from many ways and angles. Why do you think that Netflix is so cheap? It's not that cheap. It has a huge cost on your life. It's taken away minute by minute, hour by hour of your life, and you don't even realize it. And then you're going to regret it in this life and the next, because you're allowing your mind and your heart to die, allowing your ambitions to wither away. And instead of chasing your own goals, you're watching other people do these things. SubhanAllah, Surah Taghabun, the reason it's called Taghabun, it comes from Ghabun, which means when you replace something of high value for something of low value. In the next life, every minute that you wasted, that you could have worshipped Allah, that you could have done one more shukr, one more sujood, one more 2 rakat, every one of those is going to be a day of regret, where you're going to regret wasting away your life, subhanAllah. So don't waste your time. Work on yourself and build yourself up, inshallah.
Allahu Akbar. يوم يجمعكم ليوم الجمع ذلك يوم التغابن.
In life, if you try to make everyone happy, then here's what happens. Number one, you will never be able to, because someone, somewhere, will always have an issue with you. And number two, you will lose yourself as you're compromising your beliefs and values just to make others happy with you. Remember one thing, most people don't care and will forget about you very quickly. So don't live to make others happy, but rather live for the one who created you and who you will return back to.
Really? Now imagine going to heaven as being a book that is completely anonymous, that we have no idea who wrote them, there are no originals, and they're completely inauthentic with hundreds of mistakes. Or imagine that going to heaven is based on eating your dying god's flesh and drinking his blood in ritualistic cannibalism. Yeah.
You know what's unfortunate in our time, my brothers? There used to be a time when being a Muslim was an honorable thing. Being a Muslim was something you took pride in. Being a Muslim was something you were privileged to be called. Today we're running away from it. Today Muhammad's become Mo and Mustafa's become Alan and khutbah, qisas wa hikayat. Why? Because it's becoming embarrassing to be a Muslim. Now wallahi, my brothers and my sisters, you should raise your head held high. You should raise it high, for the greatest honor, the greatest love, the greatest gift, the greatest sign of Allah's mercy on any human being is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows this person with his rahmah, with his blessing, and he makes him a Muslim. That's the greatest honor you can ever have.
Without a doubt, the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
The first thing that you'll be asked about on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that you'll be held to account for, is your salah. If you done it properly, then great. However, if you didn't, انظروا هل له من نافلة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, check, is there any supererogatory, voluntary praise that he had that will make up for it? Don't look at it as a burden, my beloved brothers and sisters, right? Sometimes we walk into the masjid and we feel like it's a burden, right? Praying 2 raka'at before I sit down, because the Messenger ﷺ said, إذا دخل أحدكم المسجد فلا يجلس حتى يصلي ركعتين. If one enters into the masjid, he shouldn't sit down until he prays, right? We should try to fulfill the instructions of the Prophet ﷺ, right? We look at it as a burden. Why don't you look at it as you now taking a step closer to being with the Messenger ﷺ side by side, because you have many sunnah acts.
Okay, so I'll tell you this one story, and this is a story that has to deal with hijab. Are you guys ready for this?
Sure.
Because this is going to make you feel some type of way.
Okay.
I'm good.
So in 1955, in Syria, there was a family of 5, a mother and a father and 3 daughters, who decided to flee the country, flee Syria, and head to America. Now, the father told the wife and the 3 daughters, listen, I'm going to go to America, I'm going to go to California, I'm going to get everything set up, and then 3 weeks later, you and the 3 daughters come meet me in California. So the father flies to California, is getting everything set up. 3 weeks pass, the mother takes the 3 daughters, and they head, from Syria to America. Their first flight was from Syria all the way to New York City, where they had a layover. Now, when they landed in New York City, the customs said, hey, you guys are here new to America. You need to take all your hijabs off for the green card photo so that you guys can, stay in America. So the mother, being by herself, not really knowing the English language, is nervous and scared. She said, okay, she took the hijab off and took the photo, put it back on. Next oldest daughter did, second oldest daughter did. The third daughter, a 13-year-old girl named Hala Atik, said when it was her turn, hijab is part of my faith and I don't want to take it off for this photo. And the security, they kind of went back and forth with her, and they said, well, listen, little girl, we'll send you back to Syria if you don't take your hijab off for this photo. And she said, I would rather go back to Syria, and this is a young 13-year-old girl who flew all the way from Syria to New York in a foreign country. They're in a foreign country, she should be scared, she doesn't know what's going on. She said, I would rather go back to Syria than stay in this country if you guys are going to take my religious, rights away. Security came, management came, they put her in a back room, they made each older sister go to her separately and talk to her. They had the mother go talk to her. Then the 13-year-old girl said, I don't care who you bring back here. I will not take my hijab off for this green card photo. After 2.5 hours passed, the whole security's there, management's there, cops are there. They finally said, hey, little girl, you can keep your hijab on, you can take the photo. And I have the photo. It's a beautiful photo. It's a black and white photo.
What year is this again?
What was this? 1955.
Wow.
Now the mom is super upset at this time because she's nervous. She's missing her husband. Syria to New York is not an easy flight, and she's like, "You're so stubborn. Why don't you just listen to me?" So they grab their suitcases, and she's like pissed off at her daughter, and they run to their next gate. They miss their flight. So now this family who spent all their money, they're like, Syrian refugees. They're now like even more scared and even more worried. And the mom's like, now what do we do? They go to United Airlines. They talk to them. They negotiate. They're like, well, we can't do anything. You guys are making it difficult. Finally, they mutually agree that we'll put you on the next flight to California. They get on the next flight. While they're flying to California, the mom is yelling at this 13-year-old girl like the entire time. Like, you're so stubborn. I miss my husband. I'm tired. They land in California, and their husband's, the father's there, and he's in tears and he's crying. And he's like, you're alive, you're alive. And he's like, they're like, why wouldn't we be alive? The flight that they were supposed to get on, American Airlines number 191, crashed, killing 295 people. It was the biggest crash in American Airlines history. And the young girl, Hala, 13-year-old Hala, looks up at her whole family and says, hijab saved our life.
Wow.
She was there in California. I'm having an event on September 8th. Hala was there. Hala's coming. She's now like, an old woman. She still wears hijab. I put this on my platform, Muslims of the World, about 1.5 years ago. Over 40 million people ended up reading that story because it went viral. And out of that 40 million, when it went viral, about 10 people converted to Islam because of that story. And about 20 Muslim girls have messaged us and said that they've put on hijab because of this story.
Wow.
That is probably my most favorite story.
I can't imagine there's anything better that could beat that.
Original ticket was on American Airlines Flight 191.
Bound for Los Angeles.
The doomed aircraft set to depart O'Hare on May 25, 1979 at 3:04 p.m.
The nose and the left wing apparently hit first.
As the plane took off, the primary engine fell off.
There were multiple explosions.
It was in the air for just 31 seconds before it crashed to the ground, killing all 271 people on board and 2 people on the ground.
بعض الشباب يقول لك اغاني، انا بس مشكلتي اغاني بس، هذه مشكله. شوف من بدايه شراء الاغاني وشراء له الحديث، شوف الايتين ايش النهايه. الناس من يشتري له الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم، ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذها هزوا، أولئك لهم عذاب مهين. وإذا تتلى عليه آياتنا ولى مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها، كأن في أذنيه وقرا، فبشره بعذاب أليم.
Look, to be honest with you, I need to give an introduction to the answer. Islam is a religion I have chosen, you have chosen. Have you chosen it? We've chosen it. Is it from you or from Allah? Are you happy that it's from Allah? So if the dunya tells you something and Allah tells you something else, does it make, or which one is more important, the first or the second? What Allah has said. So even if the whole world is doing something and we are taught that this is not supposed to be done in the deen, we should not be feeling it hard in our hearts to say, Allah, if I die today, I know that I chose to be a Muslim and I chose to worship you and I know it's your rules. It's so difficult today to talk because you're talking to a secular world and sometimes they will pick on a small point of yours and they will make it a big issue for nothing, but not realizing that we do believe you are free to choose whether you're a Muslim or not. But the fact that you chose you're a Muslim, you are not free to change Islam. That's what we're saying. You cannot come and say, no, you know what, Islam needs to be modified. Well, then tell yourself you're a modified Muslim. Someone says that you're a Muslim, say, no, I'm a modified Muslim, you know. So people know. But if you want to call yourself a Muslim, you've surrendered. So you need to know there are certain things that people might say, and you might think, oh, this guy is backward, man. How could he say that, you know? But it's because it's not from me or my pocket. My children would like to also go to birthday parties and celebrate and so on. I sit them down and I explain to them what the candles are all about. Do you know what the candles on a birthday party are all about? In ancient Europe, when the winters were so bad that people used to go into literal hibernation to keep themselves warm in whatever way they had. And when they would come out, they would count the dead. Did you know that? They would count the dead. And in order to celebrate the fact that those who are alive have passed through the winter and survived and fought nature, which means nature came to kill us in the form of cold. And because we fought nature and we stayed alive, now we need to defy it by blowing out candles. So they would put how many ever candles of their age and blow them out to show we can defy it. It's something that we believe is rooted in the medieval Europe. And it comes with its own satanic origins and so on. But people today say, what's wrong? What's wrong? I'm blowing the candles. But you don't realize it's like an act of worship of the pagans. And we're saying, you know, and people have made it a culture and a tradition. The same applies to so many other things. You know, like Valentine's and so on. People start saying, but what's wrong? How come these people, you know, you're not allowed to show your love? Well, to be honest, we are being fooled by believing that, you know what, you need to celebrate the fact that you're 1 year older by throwing a big party, everyone must come, but you don't know that now you're closer to your grave, for example. Or there are more responsibilities on your shoulder. I'm not saying that when your age turns, that you must not make dua to Allah, Ya Allah, grant me a good age and so on. But firstly, we have a Hijri calendar. Secondly, these teachings are foreign to Islam. They are actually incorrect, invalid. But they come from Allah, not from me, not from you. If I had it my way and you had it your way, we would be throwing parties because our kids put pressure on us, so do mine. But we have to speak to them, address them, try and explain to them and, you know, get to the origins of it. The sad reality is people take part wholesale. So they'll tell you, but they did it. But these people did it. That's the peer pressure. Sadly, we're living in an age, al-qabidu ala dinihi kal-qabidi ala jamr. A person who wants to hold fast to the deen is someone similar to he who is holding fast to, you know, a red hot coal, for example. So you find even families which are supposedly religious, you know, they have these big birthday parties and so on, whereas it is Islamically incorrect. Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Like I said, I've given you a little introduction before I gave the answer. There are more important things we could do, you know, than that. And we could have, you know, we could throw a party on a different occasion altogether in order to celebrate other things than to do it the pagan way. You know, I would prefer a graduation party than to have a birthday party any day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our children. May He bless us all.
Likewise, just how Christmas is a pagan holiday too, right?
سائل يسأل كلما ذهبت لزيارة والدي غالبا يسبني ويطردني بدون وجه حق فما حكم ذلك؟
قبل رأسه ويده وادعو الله له. ما جئت إلى الدنيا إلا من طريقه وهو الذي رباك حفظك صغيرا وإن كان قاسيا ومهما أساء فهو أبوك. لو كان يدعوك إلى الشرك هو أبوك. وتحمل واصبر لله وترفق بأبيك وأحسن. والله عز وجل يقول ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. فكيف الوالد كلما أمعن في القسوة أمعن في البر لله عز وجل وتحمل. وهذا يقود بإذن الله إلى عز الدنيا والآخرة.
Just to add to that, obviously, if your parents are commanding you to do something which is haram, something that is not allowed in the religion, then you cannot obey them in that.
I went to the doctor, I sat down in front of him, I told him what was wrong with me, and then he scribbled something on a piece of paper. Then he writes a prescription, you take that prescription, and then as you're leaving and you're going to the pharmacy, wallahi, you're looking at this paper because you got no idea. Then you walk into the pharmacy, the only guy that's better than the doctor for me is the pharmacist. He goes, he gives you a drug. And he tells you, yeah, make sure you take this 3 times a day after a meal, and you take it, and you got no idea. You don't question, because the doctor said so. The doctor knows what I don't know. And if I want to get better, then you need to follow the doctor's orders. Throughout the whole process, you didn't ask a single question. You didn't raise a single eyebrow. But every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to question Allah as to why He did and why He didn't. Why did Allah? Why? Why is Allah doing this? Why did Allah make this halal? Why did Allah make this haram? There's no problem in you finding out the wisdom behind things. That's fine. But to question Allah, Habibi, anta, you and I, what position are you in to do that?
If you're confused about the status of women in Islam, then let me share with you what our Prophet ﷺ taught us about women. And remember, what I'm about to mention, he ﷺ is addressing men here. He said, whoever is in charge of daughters and treats them generously, then they will act as a shield for him from the hellfire. He said about mothers, stay with your mother and be dutiful to her, for paradise lies beneath her feet. Which means serving your mother will get you to paradise. He said about wives, the world and all things in this world are precious, but the most precious thing in this world is a virtuous woman. And to conclude, he said, fear Allah with regards to your treatment of women. I don't know of any belief system that places as much emphasis on the treatment of women and elevating their status than Islam. And remember, Islam came over 1400 years ago and was delivered to a backward nation who used to torture and abuse women. This broke the status quo and challenged the narratives at the time. Oh, and let's not forget, just a few hundred years ago in Britain, they were debating if a woman had a brain or not. See, Islam was ahead of its time and is not a religion of women's rights, but it's a religion that empowers justice, kindness, and honorable treatment for women, elevating their status in this world and a means of entry to paradise for those who take care of them well. Because the true nature of a woman is wanting to be loved and looked after, and Islam is the religion that encourages that the most.
We have all these worldly desires, right? But like none of these are worth the hereafter, because we have to understand, right? We're in the year 2023 right now. 100 years from now, we'll be in the year 2123. 99.9% of the people that are living right now will all be dead. Will it matter how much art they drew? Will it matter how much music they listened to? Will it matter how much money we made? Will it matter what car I drove? No, none of these things will matter, because ultimately we all have the same fate. We'll all be in the graveyard. We'll all be questioned. We'll all have, our final destination that we go to. So like, these are things to keep in mind, and that includes obviously your friends that you hang around with. Like, these people are going to be temporary, right? But obviously your Muslim friends, they won't be, because these can be your righteous companions in paradise.
For the sisters out there, is beware of tabarruj. You guys know what that is, of course, right?
Yeah.
So tabarruj, beautifying yourself, even if you're wearing hijab, like, don't be like someone who in Ramadan, they only get hunger and thirst out of Ramadan. Don't be someone who you only get the fact that your hair is covered during, while wearing hijab. The fact that you're not feeling modest in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you're not satisfied enough with your appearance and covering for the sake of Allah, that you have to beautify yourself while you're trying to cover up. Like, there's a contradiction in that. You can't try to beautify yourself while also trying to cover yourself up. You're supposed to be concealing your beauty.
And don't let it be the first time that you're covered up is when you're in the grave.
Allahu Akbar. I think I'm just going to watch one or two more, and then that's going to be it for today.
How do you have khushu' in the prayer? How do you have stillness in the prayer? That humility in the prayer? And he gave the example of that ceiling fan. This ceiling fan here, he said, if it's going on high speed and you turn it off, is it going to be still right away? No. It's going to take a long time to slow down. I don't know if this is off or on right now, but it's slowing down. It's slowing down. And so when a person is living out in the world in high speed, and then they walk into the masjid, are they going to be able to turn off like that ceiling fan right away? No. It takes time for you to reach that stillness. And that's why you'll find so much preparation, so much presence that is required even before the salah. When the adhan is called, that adhan that is to the wudu that you make, to the walking to the salah. The Prophet ﷺ says to walk with stillness and tranquility. The adhkar that you make when you hear the adhan, the adhkar that you make when you make wudu, that presence that you have when you're making wudu, all of that is preparation for you to come a couple of minutes before the salah, for you to sit and you are in salah while you're waiting for the salah. All of that is to facilitate or helps facilitate that presence, that stillness.
If you have any comments on any of the videos that we watched, please go ahead and let me know. I read all of my comments, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.